Jaimee.
It was like an out-of-body experience.
Cyclone. One more time.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
This is happening in real life.
I felt so happy. Tell me something I don't know, Dad.
It really surprises you.
Absolutely. Well, I can see you're welcome back. I want to get married in 6 months.
This is true love. I think this happens every day.
To Dear Future Bride. Today's guest is Jaimee, a content creator, spreadsheet queen, and a newlywed who recently tied the knot in Noosa with what she describes as a coastal chic celebration that was anything but low-key. Jaimee brought her A game to planning, and today she's here to tell us what it actually felt like to be the one in the white dress after years of working behind the scenes. In this episode, we talk about the mental load of planning, what it really takes to feel present on the day, and how to trust yourself through the chaos. Welcome, Jaimee.
Thank you for having me.
So you have worked on a lot of weddings. When it was your turn, did you feel like you had it covered, or did that experience just make it harder to switch off the vendor brain?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that all the experience definitely helped me, just filled my brain with what I knew needed to happen and how I wanted my day to play out a bit more. I think if I hadn't had that exposure, I probably wouldn't have been so type A micromanaging about it, but that ended up actually working in my favor anyway. So the experience definitely helped me, I think, plan it. And then in the lead up, I was in that vendor headspace of writing out our run sheet, coordinating all of our vendors, because we didn't have a wedding coordinator as such or a planner. That was my hat, which I was more than happy to wear. And I think having all of that experience and being so across the planning allowed me to wake up on the actual day when it was our time, and just be in my bride moment rather than stressing out. I kind of was like, okay, everything's out of my control now. So just be a bit in the moment, so I was really happy with how that all worked out.
Did you have an on-the-day coordinator to help sort of hand everything over to?
Yeah, so we had our stylist, she kind of doubled as our coordinator for the ceremony aspect. So managing my husband and the groomsmen and my mum and my grandparents and all that, and then getting us kind of down the aisle as we needed. And then from there it was kind of everyone else had their roles, like my sister and my dad, photographer, and then our venue staff. So it was quite a seamless handoff actually, which worked out quite well, thankfully.
That's quite unusual. I find that if it's a bit of a free-for-all, that guidance is usually quite necessary, but that just speaks volumes on how well you handled the planning stage. Like everyone had their role, they knew what they were doing, and they didn't really need that leadership. So hats off to you. Well done. What part of the planning process caught you off guard or took more out of you than you expected?
Definitely our seating chart. I don't know. I was so excited to do that, and I wanted to start doing that as soon as we basically sent out invitations. But I don't know if we were overthinking it or what, but I feel like that's the thing that we kept trying to work on, and we kept coming back to it. And obviously between my family, Levi's family, everyone having their input on kind of where people should be. And in the end, it didn't even kind of result how we wanted it anyway, with misplacements of our name cards. So it was kind of a bit of a stress for no reason. But these things happen. On the day was just okay, this is out of our hands. Everyone's going to be fine. Everyone's here and happy to support us. So we just kind of let it go.
And I find that seating plans are usually the biggest stress factor for a lot of couples. You get the unicorn where they're just that was easy, but there's so many family dynamics involved, and you can't sit this person next to this person because they hate each other, or they used to be boyfriend and girlfriend and now they've got, and so there's all these factors, and people overthink all of it, and it really is not for a huge amount of time of the day. It gets overthought. So it's necessary. You obviously have to have the seating chart because it's quite chaotic on the day if people are just trying to find a seat. But I find that people overthink it quite a lot. And so you said that there was some misplacement of place cards on the day. Did you feel once you let go of all of the stress of creating this beautifully structured seating chart that it all went to shit on the day, did you feel that it was a little bit of a relief of like, oh, I overthought that anyway and let's just let it go? Or did it stress you out on the day?
I think it stressed me out for 5 minutes and I worried about it and was like, you need to fix this. Probably went into like my crazy bride for a minute there. But then I kind of just moved on because really what else could we have done about it? Upon reflection, it does annoy me to think about that happened because like our family wasn't seated with like their partners or it was just all shuffled around quite wrong. But at the end of the day, everyone got what was happening and they were really great about it. And everyone still had a great night, which was my main thing. I think the whole thing about the seating chart is making sure everyone there and everyone coming is going to have the best time as well. So it is what it is, I suppose. Can't dwell on it too much.
And I suppose certain guests got to know other people that they may not have had the chance to otherwise.
True.
So it's silver lining, I guess. So did you ever feel the pressure to do something because that's just what people do? Or did you hold strong throughout the planning, have been in the industry for so long?
Had in my head the things that we weren't doing and the things that we were doing based on, I guess, our personal taste and our preferences. One of the big things we weren't actually going to do at all was a wedding cake. I'm not a cake person. And I think that was just in my brain of like, we don't need to do this. We don't need to serve anyone cake, blah, blah, blah. I think in the last like month or two out from the wedding, I was like, wait, why not? We better do it. At least we'll have the photos. So we did do it. But I guess the non-traditional part of that was we didn't actually serve it at all. So we kind of had that with our family and friends the weeks following. So yeah, that was really nice. But yeah, we weren't really too stuck to anything traditional. I feel like there was other things we didn't do, but now I can't remember. We didn't do a bouquet toss, and I feel like I have no regrets about that. So I think the world we're in now, you just have to do what's right for you and not get too stuck on these things and focus on, you know, the traditions that do matter to you or you would look back on and regret not doing.
And what made you get the cake in the end?
I think I was just like, we better, because no one like influenced me really. I think I was in my own head and I was like, oh, we may as well. And probably just like watching TikTok and things being like, oh, that even like just how it looked. I was like, we better have it.
And it's so true with doing what's right for you. I didn't have a cake. I didn't do a first dance, didn't do a bridal party, got married on a Tuesday. Like, I am not a fan of bouquet or garter tosses at all. And it's about bringing in the traditions that mean something to you, like walking down the aisle with your dad. If you don't like your dad, don't walk down the aisle with him, or walk down the aisle with your cousin or your dog, or, you know, just something that's going to be meaningful, or no one. Like, it's just bring in your own personalities, and there's some beautiful traditions. Yeah, they're outdated for what the meaning behind them. But bringing them into your own day in a special way, if they mean something
just
to you, is really special.
That's it, making it your own. Like, we had my cousin sign our marriage certificate, which I feel like is so random, but like such a nice way to bring in people that might not just be in the bridal party, bringing them in for a reason and kind of giving them a role, which was really nice. We loved that.
Like, putting the thought into how you can bring certain elements in without feeling the pressure of just doing it because you have to do it. You know, I feel like people go, it's a wedding and I have to do it. It's the wedding law, and there's no wedding law.
Exactly. And we've seen through Love Lane brides that are just doing it because the groom's family needs to do it or wants to do it. And you just see like their face on the day or like their attitude about it is so different to someone who has just kind of fully embraced what it means for the couple, I guess, rather than kind of listening to the external parties. But obviously sometimes that can't be avoided, and it's better to keep the peace.
And that's so true. Like, you have to weigh up if it's worth the drama. It's yes, don't don't hold strong for no reason. Like, if it doesn't matter to you, like if you've got your mum that's like, you have to have a cake, we have to do the cake, and if you're like, whatever, I take it or leave it, let's just do it, you know. But if it's going to cause absolute, you know, chaos if you within your family, if you don't do it, then obviously that's a no-brainer.
Exactly.
What was something people didn't tell you about planning a wedding that you feel like you wish you knew?
Oh, probably for me, it was like how I think there's this mindset of like you're building up to the main event, which is the wedding. But I think the build up is so much of like the excitement and the special time is that kind of time that you are planning and you are talking about it and you have it to look forward to. And then obviously you have the day and it's over and you're like, what is my purpose now? Like I just spent 12 months planning this wedding and it's over. And like, obviously that's so sad. And you've got to like think about how amazing the day was and how good it went. But I think just soaking up that time a bit more is kind of what I'm telling all my girlfriends at the moment. I'm like, just enjoy it while you can.
Did you get anybody get sick of hearing about the wedding plans?
Definitely, definitely. And at the end, I was super mindful, which probably also made me like shut it off a bit because I was like, it's all we talk about when we have a family dinner or whatever. But I guess it's a once in a lifetimer. So let me have my moment.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people, when they're not in it or haven't done it before, they're just like, oh yeah, cool, she's engaged, she's planning a wedding. Like, it's not a big deal in their lives, but obviously they're happy for you until you've lived it. And when they get married, they're like, I probably should have been more supportive or I should have done this in hindsight. But until you live it yourself, it's a hard thing. And it can cause a lot of drama with all these opinions coming at you and then people not wanting to hear anything about it. And also it's so important to be able to switch off the planning as well, because if it's so consuming in your life, it's important to have date nights where it's specifically to talk about weddings and you can sort of get things done, but also have date nights where it's just off limits. Like you're not allowed to talk about wedding planning and just like be together and be in the moment and enjoy it because it's so consuming.
I think it's like, the fine line between like, let me take my mental load off from planning this wedding, but also I don't want to annoy you with talking about it too much. But now all my girlfriends that are engaged, I'm like, tell me literally everything. I'll sit here for hours and talk to you about it.
You're going to be the maid of honor at every wedding moving forward.
Literally, I'm like always in the background, like trying to get their content for them.
God, you'd be the friend to have around, honestly. For context, Jaimee did content creation for me for a brand shoot and was the best hype girl I probably have ever come across. She was everywhere going, yes, queen, you just got this. And oh my God, it was just so good. So were there any small details that you really obsessed over that now make you laugh looking back?
Probably not. The biggest thing I like have no regrets about this, but my husband, well, we obviously had booked this beautiful venue, but they had these big like tub like chairs and I was like, not the vibe. We've got to get rid of them and bring in our own. So I was absolutely like non-negotiable on this chair chain. And my husband's like, we don't need to do that, waste of money, blah, blah, blah. Turns out I was right and he was wrong. So I'm glad we did that. But nothing else was I kind of like too stuck on. I guess I was a bit like micromanaging with the briefs that I gave everyone. But I guess after I handed that over, I was kind of like, this is out of my control. They know where I'm up to. So the rest is just got to play out how it's going to play out.
Did you find that it was more the type A side of things or a lack of trust in certain vendors to be able to execute your vision?
Maybe a bit of both, to be honest. I don't know. It's a hard one because I've obviously selected my team based on like what they've done in the past and previous interactions with them. But I guess what ours was different to what they'd done in the past. So I think I was like going a bit rogue, bringing them in, but I did trust them as people. So it's a tricky one, but I think we got there in the end, mostly.
I find that with some vendors, they have a very specific way of what they do and what they execute, and anything that's outside the box, it's like almost like they're on this train track and they're like, yep, we've got this. And then it's off the track and they're like, hang on, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's different to how we do things. And it's almost like can be a bit of a drop down menu, this collection or this style or whatever. And so it's so important to really have those conversations initially and research and before you commit. So you're fully trusting in people. Because if you expect a certain thing without feeling comfortable with them, there's always going to be that resistance. And is going to cause you additional stress and them additional stress. And it's so good to like be able to just fully trust in your team and let go. And I think you may have had quite a bit different experience if you had that trust in every single person from the planning stage.
I think so as well. And like, obviously we had like all this trust in everyone, but it did pay off. I trusted that everyone was going to get there with what we wanted, but it did take a lot of conversations and inspiration and direction in shot lists and things like that. But then if I didn't kind of let that information come out of my brain and share it with them, no matter what their style was or what their past experience was, I probably would have not been able to sleep at night because I would have been like, but do they fully get me? Like, no matter who they were, I don't think that probably would have changed for me.
I think that's the big difference with brides and grooms, but mainly brides, you know, let's be real. Planning weddings without a planner, like I know I'm super biased and planners are the best, but you're doing this for the first time and you've got a vision and it's like all this brain dumping of ideas and details and you don't know what you don't know. So you're like running into all of these things. With that support, you're kind of like, this is my vision, go and do it. And the planner's like, yep, cool. And then does all of the stuff in the back end, discusses it with the vendors and the vendors understand it. It's like a whole different thing. And it's really interesting talking to you because obviously like I plan the weddings, but speaking to somebody that didn't and the issues that arises are so different to what a wedding with a planner has.
It definitely looks different. And I think, well, like we've, through Love Lane, our wedding content creation, have seen run sheets and seen like brides from every walk of life with every different kind of, most of them actually haven't had a planner or a coordinator. And we've seen it unravel on the day. Like we've seen the run sheets that are like 2:00 here, 3:00 here. I'm like, what's happening for that hour? There's things that need to be happening. And yeah, we see it unravel on the day. So if I hadn't had all that kind of exposure to the industry, and even friends in the industry that were there to provide advice, I think that it wouldn't have been as easy, obviously, for me, but I absolutely recommend to everyone if they haven't had that kind of exposure to get a planner. And I'm like, I think I've said it in one of our TikToks, like you are it for me. I was like, if I was doing it, you would have been it.
Oh, well, it's likewise with content creation. And I find like I've come across run sheets as well where it's like 2:00 here, 2:05 here, 2:06 here. And I'm just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what
like it's
if
so
that's fully thrown off?
Exactly. It's so like military. You can plan it to a point, but you also have to like buffer in certain times as well. And so, yeah, it's crazy what people are. But again, you don't know what you don't know. So when like, who would have created a wedding run sheet if you've never done it before?
That's it.
And like, where do you find the information for that as well? But in your opinion, what do most couples get talked into and regret later?
Oh, that's actually so hard. Because we weren't really talked into anything, I'm like, I can't picture myself being in that position of like, you have to do this, and me being like, yeah, okay.
Did you find that you had a lot of opinions coming at you and there was a lot of pressure around having to people please within your planning?
I think both of our parents and probably our bridal parties know what I'm like. So I think they knew that they weren't going to stand a chance anyway. Definitely the opinions of our parents we would take into account fully because it's obviously a huge day for them as well. Probably me and my mum usually would butt heads over these kinds of things, and probably the seating chart was a big factor in that. But it's also great to have their opinions because then you're not just like stuck in your zone and you look back later and you're like, oh, maybe I should have listened. So I think to a point, like, let them in, but stick to your gut feeling.
That is such good advice. So if somebody else was planning a wedding now, what would you tell them to look out for when choosing vendors?
Definitely personality. Like, as much as like what they do can be amazing, I think you need to consider the type of vibe that they're going to actually bring to your day, which we did have a couple of issues with in hindsight, but it can impact, I guess, your feeling on the day as well. Like our hair and makeup team was so beautiful and so lovely, and their calm energy obviously just like kept everyone else calm and there was just no stress. But then as soon as like someone else would come in that was a bit like edgy, it would kind of just like ripple through everyone else. So yeah, choosing them based on like the vibe that they have and their energy and their personality and what they can bring to your day, making sure that's really positive and light.
How did you go with your own challenges with the vibe on the day? Like, did anything impact you? Or obviously we had a good start to the day with hair and makeup, but you mentioned earlier about the place cards and things like there was just obviously a few hiccups, which, you know,
Yeah.
every wedding has, you know, and it's, you know, whether they're major or minor, like everyone's human and it's not this fairy tale that you see that it's painted out to be. It's real life, it's raw, it's amazing, but, you know, things do happen. So in your experience, were there anything that were challenges on the day apart from the seating plan?
Definitely the seating plan. Bridal party had kind of a few issues with some of our vendors, and just kind of the energy they were bringing to the day in terms of like making people comfortable and feel really open and warm. But in saying that, whilst we look back and we're like, God, that was annoying, it's really like a huge priority for Levi and I to be like, not let that take away from how good everything else was. And I think that's the, like you said, people make mistakes and there's always going to be things happening in the back end. Like I'm sure that there was shit going on that I didn't even know about and I hope I never know about it, but it's just part of it. And yeah, if I kind of sat around and dwelled on the place card situation, it would have impacted my vibe for the whole night. But there's just no point in getting stuck on those little things. I guess, yeah, just my advice would be prepared for those things to happen. And like, it's probably not that serious as like you've got all your people there celebrating your love, like you're with your partner. I think just soak in that and everything else is just kind of like background noise.
Did you bounce back fairly quickly or did you find that it affected a big chunk of the day?
I bounced back probably in like 5 minutes. I just had a champagne and got over it. That's the key to success, really.
I mean, the couples that really let it drag the whole thing down and you've got one shot at it, you know?
That's it.
And if one little slip up happens, like I find that some couples are so high strung that they just can't move past things and they're just like, right, my day's ruined, everything's crap and it all went to shit.
That's it.
And that's what they remember. It's important to be able to have like water off a duck's back, but also like try and avoid certain issues. So it's so true when you say sort of like the personalities. It's like matchmaking vendors and couples initially, and the vibes are off is a good enough excuse not to book somebody. They could have the most
Absolutely.
amazing portfolio. And then if you chat with them, and always chat with them, like don't just book somebody off, you know, there's certain ones that you don't really need to chat with, but like photography, celebrant, content creation, videography, wedding planner, like these are the people that you're going to be spending the most time with on the day and that are going to hold that space for you. And it's so important to be able to fully lean on them and take that direction. And because it is such an intimate day that if the vibes are off,
Yeah.
it's awful. It's so bad.
Yeah, the impact isn't worth it. And it's funny, like talking to especially like on Levi's side, the bridal party, like how this vendor impacted their day and they were just like so off it. But I guess another thing for me in terms of like the vetting the vendors process is the communication in the lead up. As you just said, like communicating that whole time and all being on the same page is so important. And the fact that there wasn't that with this vendor, like should have probably been a red flag to me from the beginning. But anyway, as I say, it's just a minor part of the day. Everything else was great.
Did you have set vendors that it was a non-negotiable for when you got engaged and you were like, I know exactly who I want for this, this and this? Or were there certain vendors that you were like, I have no idea because you may not have Like there's certain vendors in the industry that you wouldn't have as much interaction with. So as a content creator, you're not there for the setup of things. So you may not see florists in action and lighting companies and hire companies and those sorts of vendors. So were there any that you had no idea where to begin, and were there other ones that you were like, yep, absolutely?
I think like before we even got engaged, I knew who I was going to pick on every level. And maybe that was my issue, is that when it came time, I just said yes and didn't do any more research and didn't think about it because I was just like, this is it. So yeah, that's like probably not a good strategy for everyone. I feel like you always have your Instagram saved content and you're like, that's what I'm going to do. But I think it is important. And I wish I did take a step back to be like, okay, yeah, I might really love this person's work, or I might have had such great interactions with this person, but is it right for my day? When like 80% was perfect. So I would say like it wasn't that big of a deal.
Did Levi have any say in anything throughout the planning?
Look, I tried to get him involved, but besides the chair thing, which I didn't approve anyway, I definitely ran everything by him before locking in and just like made sure it was okay. And he was happy with it, but he didn't really have too much like interest in the styling side or the flowers or anything like that anyway. So I just got the tick of approval and ran with it.
Were there anything that he was surprisingly interested in getting involved with, or was the whole thing like, yep, you just let me know where to turn up and I'll be there?
Pretty much like where to turn up. I mean, we obviously he kind of like walked into our day and was like not sure what to expect. And I think that probably caused him to be a bit overwhelmed on the day. And because I know that their morning was a bit more stressful than ours, but I feel like that's just boys not being a cross organization. But no, I think he had a lot to do with like our music choices and choosing our food, and obviously contributed a lot to the seating chart. But yeah, the creative side, I think he was just like, you better do whatever you want because otherwise you won't be happy.
He knows his place. It's so
He
funny.
gets it.
It's so funny you say that, because in my experience, it's so common. Brides are usually big picture, hair and makeup, the way things are styled, the photography, the way things aesthetically look. And grooms are like guest entertainment, food and alcohol, like the whole experience. And also, how much is this thing going to cost me? They're very like, what do you mean flowers cost that much? It's like crazy.
Yeah.
So
I kept that detail to the side.
That was a different budget. And now that it's behind you, what advice would you give yourself if you could go back to the very beginning? I know that we've touched on a few different things, but specifically in your experience, what are the regrets?
Oh, regrets are definitely, this one's so niche, but I actually look back and I'm like, why didn't I micromanage that more? Our venue is like by the river, so it's like coastal vibes, beautiful. And because of that, they have blue plates and blue cups. So I remember being like, make sure there's no blue plates. That does not go with like our crisp white florals and our no color. But I forgot to check about the cups. And then there's these like blue glasses on the tables in all the photos. And I'm like, my God, that's like super niche. And I think it's also kind of funny. I'm like, okay, random, that's annoying me now. And the other thing would probably, I feel like I said I wasn't going to drink that much, but then you know what it's like all your favorite people are there. Everyone's just like making sure you have a full glass. But I would have held off probably until after we cut the cake and our first dance, because I look at those photos and I'm like, they will never see the light of day. But I also had the best day of my life, so no regrets.
It's just a sweaty mess by the end of it. But like, to be real, everybody is the same in that situation. That's why we try and structure the photography timings to have a little bit of the start of the dance floor, but anyone that wants them to stay on to capture more dance floor shots, it's much the same, and it just gets worse and worse. And it's not photos that you would have in your wedding album or put up in your house. So it's very important to keep that on the DL, and what happens on the wedding day stays.
Absolutely. And we, as you just said, like strategically kind of ended our photographer at about that time. And then we obviously film cameras and Polaroids are a huge thing now. So we had one of our friends just running around like taking Polaroids of everyone, and they're all just like everyone's so drunk, but they're such good photos and they're just so funny to look back on. It's the best.
So Polaroids, probably not like film cameras that you have to actually get. So I'm like showing my age here. But having to go get certain photos printed later, you pay money and then you get all these photos that are like super inappropriate.
Literally.
So
People
bad.
go rogue.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, Jaimee, thank you so much for being so open and honest about your experience. And I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to watch this podcast thrive.